of that great inland sea. The wind in my face, the spirit that's free. Lake Michigan, far as the eyes can see. Welcome back home again.
What they did with Lake Michigan, it's fantastic. I mean, take a huge piece of water like that with nothing but alewives and lamprey eels and turn it into one of the greatest fishing holes in the world.
More than that, heck, just by planting salmon, they solved the big problem of alewives dying each year and stinking up the beaches.
Which is a lot better than shoveling them up with bulldozers, which is what the government suggested.
Yeah, all that. But you know, really the greatest thing is, with all the great sport fishing here, everyone is working like hell now to clean up Lake Michigan and keep it that way.
The fishermen of Lake Michigan are understandably enthusiastic about their brand of fishing. Because before, where there was none or little to speak of, now there is great fishing. And it's getting better every year.
Riding the waves of that great inland sea. The wind in my face, a spirit that's free. Lake Michigan, far as the eyes can see. Welcome back home again. Welcome back home again. Welcome back home again.
It's a complicated answer, but it adds down to good, productive trout and salmon water, a lot of food that was going to waste, a large number of fishermen that needed an additional fishing opportunity. Food.
This is Howard Tanner, who, as head of Michigan's Department of Natural Resources, was one of the men who successfully planted Pacific salmon in Lake Michigan, creating a whole new brand of fishing.
Attractive fish, a high-status fish, a fish that would jump, a fish that would eat well. It was an all-around attractive fish that should take advantage of the opportunity that we would give it. There are places in the world, there's Great Slave Lake, and there's Alaska, and there's Labrador, and places that you can enjoy beautiful fishing. But the really great part of this is it's right next door to millions and millions of people. Oh, wait just a minute. And the one thing was this fish had to be very, very stupid, because the fishermen had to be able to catch it. Seriously, we could put brown trout out there and we would catch a very small percentage of them. These people aren't the expert fishermen. This is the vast bulk of fishermen. They had to have a fish they could catch.
What's he mean stupid? We use every kind of electronic gadget there is. Outriggers and downriggers, and throw the whole tackle box at them. Some days they just don't hit.
He's gotta be kidding.
I'd like to get in his boat sometime.
Yeah, but you gotta admit, when you get to a school of feeding salmon, you get fish even if you're doing everything all wrong.
It's a good fish. Let them have their bass, stripers and big blues. We've got salmon.
Lake Michigan has great fishing in the spring. The salmon, although small, are plentiful and schooled up near the warmer surface water in the southern part of the lake. There are literally millions of salmon, coho salmon especially, but also Chinooks, the big kings they call them, and rainbows, brown trout, lake trout, golden trout, and now even Atlantic salmon. Credit the state of Michigan for initiating the salmon program and for maintaining the largest stocking program. But Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin now have ambitious and enthusiastic stocking programs and plans for expensive cold water hatcheries to raise their own fish. The fishermen themselves also help the cause, contributing to big release programs through such organizations as Salmon Unlimited. Altogether, more than 10 million salmon and trout are released into the lake every year. Most of them are cohos. Like their ancestors, the Pacific salmon, they will migrate to the river of their birth. And that migration, north from Indiana to Illinois, Illinois to Wisconsin, Wisconsin to Michigan, will produce some of the most exciting fishing action seen anywhere. In 1967, the first time the salmon ran, it must have been some happening.
You can't believe it. Suddenly, the word went out that salmon were biting. The place went crazy.
Every fisherman in the Midwest came out of the woodwork. They bought up every decent lure within 100 miles of the action. It was incredible.
The thing was, there really weren't many boats around that were made for Lake Michigan, so they used what they had, even rowboats and canoes.
Now look at it. The coho have created a whole new brand of fishing. Special lures, special rods and reels, special boats, special techniques. It's like nothing else.
If you look at a lot of the boats that get launched, you'll see that their props are painted fluorescent orange or like that, and that's the same theory. They figure it's an attractor. They're attracted to the color and the vibrations in the prop. A coho, you can catch a coho a lot of times the first part of the year just over the back of your outboard motor. You can have your line maybe 10 foot out and back of the motor, and you'll catch a fish right in the prop. Coho are not scared of the boat at all.
Even Howard Tanner was pleasantly surprised when the fish returned that fall.
Yeah, I was surprised. I had, my surprise took two forms. One is the fish were bigger than we expected. I predicted, I hoped conservatively 5 pounds, maybe 6 pounds. But the fish came in much bigger, and the results came in quicker and easier than I had anticipated. The story very quickly. I went down on the dock in Chicago, a pier, 6 o'clock in the morning. A fellow is coming off the pier with a business suit, and he's got fishing tackle in one hand, briefcase in the other, and he's got a 5-pound salmon, 5-pound coho salmon. This happened several years ago. And I stopped and talked to him. He said, "Look at me." He said, "I work in Chicago, I live in Chicago, and on my way to work this morning, I caught a 5-pound salmon." See? Now that's the important. It's that human ingredient.
That human ingredient is something sought for by people in all walks of life. People like one of the country's most popular political figures, Chicago Mayor Richard Daley.
We no longer have to go, as he said, to Canada or to Seattle or any other place or to Nova Scotia to catch a lot of fine fish. And fishing is the greatest thing we can do. They say, the Lord said that the time you spend fishing, you'll get additional time on earth. So you should spend a lot of time in fishing. And I think some of the finest times I had in life was going fishing with my dad. And I know you men have done the same thing with your boys or your girls. And some of the greatest times I've had is fishing with my boys and my girls. I think there's something about fishing that I don't have to tell you men and women that are in this room. But there's a companionship that develops among members of your family or friends when you go fishing that I think you get in no other way.
When the salmon move north again, the citizens of Waukegan, Illinois are waiting for them, including its mayor, who readily admits to wetting a line now and then. What Howard Tanner calls the human ingredient is quite evident here. 33 million people live within a day's drive of Lake Michigan. Some days it seems they're all trying to go fishing. 1,000 boats will go fishing in a weekend evening.
When the fish are really hitting, the line of cars and boats waiting to get to the launching ramp stretches 7 blocks. 7 blocks!
By midsummer, coho fever is at a peak, up and down the entire lake. The fish are bigger, too. By this time, they're feeding vigorously on the alewives and gaining as much as 2 pounds a month. In some parts of Lake Michigan, fishermen have their own floating radio station, keeping them up to date on fishing news and weather.
Bob Bladek and Mark Owendorf, fishing between the point and the lighthouse, limited out with Lakers this morning on the bottom in 95 feet of water. They caught the fish in 2.5 hours. Another reason just to show you that fishing has been good in the Manitowoc Two Rivers area.
But as many fishermen will tell you, you don't need a boat to catch a fish. A lot of fish, particularly brown trout and salmon, can be picked off near the breakwaters and piers. To handle the boom in boating traffic, new breakwaters are being added and lengthened, much to the delight of the pier fishermen. Hundreds of coho and trout are landed, and every now and then there's a bonus, like this big Chinook salmon. The biggest Chinook ever recorded was 126 pounds, taken in a trap near Alaska. Lake Michigan hasn't seen anything like that yet, but for fishermen, hope springs eternal. By late summer, most of the fish are taken by trolling spoons and flies down in the colder reaches of water, and 50 to 55 degree water that is the most comfortable to the salmon. Electronic fish locators and graphs help locate the salmon.
Get the microphone. Oh, God, I've got this rope on me here. Throttle. Get it around here. Go back on my side of the cord here. Hit the end.
The fishermen use downriggers to lower their lures to the correct depth. When a fish strikes, it pulls the line from a clip, and the fisherman fights the fish, not a heavy weight. As a result, relatively light tackle reigns supreme for Lake Michigan fishermen.
Well, trolling, I use fairly light tackle, but your reel has to have a large line capacity. Because if a Chinook grabs your lure, he's gone. He'll run like hell, and you'll have a dickens of a time turning him.
Well, the thing is, you can use even 10-pound tests in the spring when the fish are small, but later in the season, the fish are bigger, and usually you have a herring dodger in front of a daredevil or fly, and you've got to have 30-pound or stronger at that end.
That fluorescent strand line is nice. Trolling, for instance. It helps you keep all your lines straight.
Yeah, especially if you got 6 or 8 lines out. You can't afford a tangle.
I can't. It'll be pretty hard to do with both fish this way. That's about as nice as...
By October, coho salmon are 3 years old and nearing the end of their lifespan. Those 1-pound coho the Indian fishermen didn't catch are now 9 and 10 pounds and starting to school up again prior to making their spawning run. It provides for some super fishing action.
Well, I think it's the greatest fishing you can find. I just do. Where you can take light tackle and tangle with a fish that does the tail dance, it does the run, and, you know, it's just tremendous. And my brother-in-law came out here last year, got a 25-pound on a 10-pound outfit, had him on an hour and 40 minutes. What more can you ask? Without going to the expense of going deep sea fishing or something, you're within 5 minutes of fishing, no matter, you know, what kind of fishing you want to do. Gosh, where I came from, if you got an 18-inch trout, you got your name in the paper, and you see that was the first salmon I ever caught. Well, of course, that was enough right there. You know, this young lad in the yellow raincoat just saw one yesterday when he came. We started fishing yesterday morning about 7, and I hooked on about 7:30, 8 o'clock. He says, well, I know where I'm coming next year.
I think it's tremendous, tremendous. I come from Florida to go salmon fishing here every year. Yeah, but they're not salmon down there. A lot of other fish, but no salmon. I catch tarpon and things like that, but I'd rather catch salmon anytime.
No, I've done a lot of fishing out in the ocean. This is the biggest fish I've ever caught. Well, we got fish back home, but not salmon, muskie. They're pretty good fighters.
And close by are the new Holiday Inns and marinas and other facilities built to serve the sudden influx of fishermen.
Just about any kind of a lure. If you drag it through the water long enough, it'll hit it. Bass lures, daredevils, it doesn't matter what it is. So some work better than others, but if you put something in the water and leave it there long enough, you'll catch something.
Then, as the spawning urge overtakes the feeding urge, the salmon move into their various rivers of no return.
I couldn't believe it. The Platte River's always been a nice fishing river. But suddenly, one fall, thousands and thousands of monster salmon were running beneath the boat.
It's the most unbelievable sight in the world, Lee. Just unbelievable.
It put my heart right in my throat the first time. I was struck dumb. I couldn't even make a cast.
Boy, don't you think the Conservation Department people were thrilled when the salmon returned to the Platte 3 years after they were planted?
Does an accordion player wear rings?
Well, I was thrilled the first time I saw those coho and chinook under the boat. It was the most startling thing because it was so unexpected.
Yeah, one day everything was peace and quiet, and the next day these big dark shapes darting back and forth.
And the next day, hundreds of dark shapes, then thousands. What a scene.
Some will still strike a lure, and the tight quarters of a stream make for a great fight.
Guys, watch this in case this fish comes up on this side jumping.
Riding the waves of that great inland sea, the wind in my face, the spirit that's free, Lake Michigan far as the eyes can see. Welcome back home again. Kings and goes as long as you're on, shining like silver, a fisherman's charm. It isn't a myth or a mariner's yarn, it's salmon by thousands I see.
Big rainbow trout, in search of salmon eggs to eat, are another bonus to the stream fishermen.
Riding the waves of that great inland sea, the wind in my face, a spirit that's free, Lake Michigan far as the eyes can see. Welcome back home again. Now the feverish natural longing, return to the place of your birth. Nature is crying, time for your spawning, give life then return to the earth.
The lake will never be the same. The Platte River will never be the same. Just watching the salmon running upstream is fantastic.
Riding the waves of that great inland sea, the wind in my face, a spirit that's free, Lake Michigan far as the eyes can see. Welcome back home again. Salmon is much like a man with a goal, driven by nature alone. His instinct is telling him where he must go. With purpose, life takes its toll.
back to bed.
Are they your favorite?
A little harder to come by, I suppose.
Riding the waves of that great inland
I can't really tell you what my favorite is.
In my face, a spirit that's free. Lake Michigan, far as the eye can see. Welcome back home again. Kings and cozies long your arm, shining like silver, a fisherman's charm. It isn't a myth or a mariner's yarn. It's salmon by thousands.
I think we're really getting spoiled. When we get a 15, 20 pounder on, we taste a little one.
Riding the waves of that great inland sea. The wind in my face, a spirit that's free. Lake Michigan, far as the eyes can see. Welcome back home again.
Most have stopped feeding completely, and following nature's instincts, will struggle upstream to spawn.
Well, I guess they don't have to worry about having enough salmon eggs to plant now.
They've got to catch these salmon unawares to make sure they don't make too many little salmon for the lake. It's a real delicate balance.
The end is near for these coho salmon, but it's just the beginning for a new generation of these beautiful creatures. Conservation men artificially spawn and fertilize the eggs. This will ensure another plentiful but carefully controlled yearly stocking program. Basically, salmon experts do not want to risk upsetting the balance between the salmon and the amount of food available to them.
Riding the waves of that great inland sea. The wind in my face, a spirit that's free. Lake Michigan, far as the eyes can see. Welcome back home again. Welcome back home again. Welcome back home again.
As good as the fishing is now, Howard Tanner believes it will get even better.
My concern is not about how we manage the fisheries. We can do that well, we can do it in a mediocre sense, or we can do it poorly, but we're going to come out with a much better fishery than we have today. But the problem that the sport fisherman is going to help solve through his interest, perhaps developed and generated by the coho salmon, is interest in protecting Lake Michigan as a productive piece of the environment. And that's where the problems are going to be in protecting the quality of this water. As you mentioned,
the salmon is much like a man with a goal, driven by nature alone. His instinct is telling him where he must go. With purpose, life takes its toll. Riding the waves of that great inland sea. The wind in my face, a spirit that's free. Lake Michigan, far as the eyes can see.